All right, welcome everyone. Welcome to the second week of the sparkling box this year, 2025. We tasted champagne last week, and we're moving on to this guy right here. This is non-vintage, Le Domaine de Edouard, Le Collines de Vaux, Cremant de Bourgogne, zero dosage is what we're tasting today, or Cuvée Z for zero dosage. Um, yeah, so moving on from the champagne that we had last week, I'm going to talk a little bit a lot about why perhaps it makes sense to go to Cremant de Bourgogne. We Psalms, and then we always talk about Cremant de Bourgogne being particularly ones from the northern tip of Burgundy, being incredible champagne alternative, and we'll get into more of that. But I just love this wine, and I think honestly, given the price proposition, I think I would personally buy this over the champagne. But it's not quite champagne, but it is. It is. Given with that entry level champagne that we had last week and compare that against this, they are different, right? But we'll talk a lot more of them when we get to tasting. But anyways, I'm very excited about this. This is one of the one of the best Cremant de Bourgogne that I've had in recent memory. I was immediately excited as soon as I tasted it, and I knew that this was going to be the kind of central focal point of the sparkling box, and I kind of built the rest out from it. So yeah, this is kind of what inspired this year's sparkling box. So pretty excited to get into it. But anyways, before we get into all of that, just a few announcements. And as you notice, this is a recording. We're not doing a live tasting today because I'm in the Philippines. I'm recording this on November 7th. This should go out on the 12th. I'll be in the Philippines, or as you're watching this, if you're watching this on the 12th, I'm in the Philippines. I wasn't sure what the Wi-Fi situation was going to be like. I'm heading out to Palawan, which is a pretty remote part of Philippines. The brownout is pretty common there, so I just didn't want to risk any of it, so I figured I'll just do recordings. There will be another recording next week because I'll also be in the Philippines next week as well. So this week and next week will both be recordings. So sorry you don't get to interact with this fine character for 2 weeks. I know you're all sad, but I'm sure you will make it. All right, just a few announcements real quick though. So Case Club will close tomorrow. So tomorrow's a Thursday, November 13th. Please get those in right away if you haven't already. I need to get that all wrapped up. This is all happening while I'm in the Philippines. Maybe I planned this all poorly, but it's just the kind of dates that worked out. But so I need to close all of that out and get a sense of kind of what I need to order while I'm there. So whenever I do have access to Wi-Fi, I'm just going to pop in real quick to kind of check these orders and shoot out orders real quick. So I would hate to use that time to kind of chase you all down to see what ordered what. So if you have anything, I can't guarantee you, by the way, also that I'll be able to get it if you get it in late this month. Oftentimes I usually can get you in even if you get it in a little bit later, but this month is particularly will probably be difficult just because I'll be away and abroad. Having said that, if you want your wines by Thanksgiving, you gotta let me know right away. So as soon as you order your wines and you want those by Thanksgiving, let me know so I can get those to you. I can set it up so I can get those to you by Thanksgiving. So please do let me know. On that note also, so this Saturday, the 15th, is when the invoices go out, and I will need to wrap up those invoices while I'm in the Philippines. Again, I don't know when I'm going to have a chance to get in front of a computer with the Wi-Fi. So as soon as you do, particularly, it helps every month, but particularly so this month, if you could please just either pay the invoice or let me know that you're not joining, that would really help me. I hate just chasing you down every month to see so you're joining. So don't make me hunt you down. So yeah, just take care of that, or just let me know. That would really help me a lot. And just in case this matters, next month's theme, the final theme of 2025, is going to be Puglia, which is so we're going to southern Italy. So we're going from this kind of all the sparkling. It's gonna be cold, it's gonna be December, so I just wanted to kind of drink something that is burly and big and powerful. A lot of reds. So yeah, we're gonna put together Polyvas. Is a fun box that I was able to put together. So in case that matters. So that's the theme next month. All right, that's all the announcement that I really have. But really, like I said, please either pay the invoice, let me know if you're not joining, just so that I can get this all squared away as quickly as possible while I'm overseas. So that would really help. All right, let's get into the wine. In case you're just watching now, so yeah, we're tasting this guy, Le Domaine de Loire, Le Collines de Vaux, Cremant de Bourgogne, Zero Dosage, or Cuvée Z is what we're tasting today. You guys will all have a map. I will attach this to the email that goes out. But so there'll be a first one will be the French map. You guys seen that many times. And where we are is in Burgundy. So we're in Champagne, right, which is just the east of Paris. So that kind of purple region on that map, if you pull it up. And then as you go south, you see that kind of a magenta, purple, pink region. So Burgundy, that's where we are. But particularly within Burgundy, where we are is in Auxerre, which is right on the left part. So if you see where the Champagne and the Burgundy joins and meets up, and then on the left there's a town called Auxerre right by the Yonne River. That's where we are. So Côte d'Auxerre is where we are, northern tip of Burgundy, right next to Chablis. The town of Chablis is not too far. In fact, the Chablis to the right, that another pink region that butts up against the Aube, the southern tip of a Champagne region is Chablis. So that's where we are. And if we go to the next map, which is the Burgundy wine map, you kind of see the entire region dividing Chablis, as well as the Côte d'Or, Chardonnays, and Maconnais. This is basically a map of Burgundy. This is not super important for our purposes today, but essentially where we are, if you look at the Chablis all the way top left, you see that right next to Auxerre, the Côte d'Auxerre, that's where we are. And then Chablis is just 2 appellations down from that. So that entire region is actually Chablis, but the Côte d'Auxerre is one sub-region within Chablis to the left, and that's where we are. And then the final map that I sent you over, it's the map of Auxerre. That's the Yonne River that runs through. I actually stayed in Auxerre last time I visited Burgundy, or Beaujolais was really where I was going. But I spent the night there, and it's an incredibly charming town. So if you get a chance to visit this region, I recommend stopping by Auxerre. There's a very, very good restaurant that I went to. I can't remember the name of. But I drank a really incredible bottle of Irancy, which is a Pinot Noir based red wine that's made in this region. But yeah, anyways, highly recommend Auxerre if you ever go there. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about Auxerre real quick. So Côte d'Auxerre. Wine has been made here for a long time. I mean, it's part of Burgundy, right? It's just right next to Chablis. It's all part of Chablis. But it's kind of always lived in a bit of a shadow of its world-renowned neighbor, which is Chablis. Everybody knows Chablis, right? But nobody really knows Auxerre. But before Phylloxera hit Burgundy or all of France, Côte d'Auxerre was actually a prominent part of Burgundy. There was quite a bit of wine that was also being made here, but now it represents like a very small fraction of the wine produced in Burgundy. So it's just never kind of recovered to its heyday. Just kind of a small sub-satellite kind of section, sub-appellation of Chablis, essentially what has become. But it's experiencing kind of a bit of a renaissance or resurrection, I should say. With the Burgundy being just kind of out of reach, expensive, the land here is ridiculous. Many winemakers are kind of looking for a new place. And the wine has been, there's a viticulture that has existed here for a long, long time. So very established, very ancient vines and places that have a long history of growing grapes, but still not quite discovered or getting rediscovered, I should say. So a lot of winemakers are kind of eyeing these satellite villages like Côte d'Azur. And then Iran Sea is another place, which is actually, if you look at the map, that Burgundy map that I sent you, if you look at Chablis, if you look at the southern tip of the green, there's an Iran Sea right there. That's where we're talking about. So Iran Sea is a red wine territory. Côte d'Azur is both red and white, as well as a sparkling territory. But yeah, so what that means is that there's these. It means just general rule with the France, especially around these kind of really renowned, expensive appellations, is that if you go just outside Chablis, just outside of Burgundy, just outside of Sancerre, just outside of Champagne, I mean, there are these satellite villages that are right next to it that have just as old of a viticulture history, but just kind of lives in the shadow. And then with a lot of producers going there, kind of focusing their energy there to rediscover the land and then vines, you get to find some really excellent quality as well with a great value. So if you're ever looking for some great value, but you do on wines that you like a certain type of wines, but it's getting too expensive, these satellite villages are really excellent places to look. But anyways, this particular wine, that is the grapes for this wine comes from Côte d'Azur, but the wine itself, the appellation for this bottling is Cremant de Bourgogne. So what is Cremant de Bourgogne? We've talked about Cremant in the past, but I think it's better repeating, doing a little review. So Cremant de Bourgogne is an all-encompassing appellation for sparkling white and rosé wines of Burgundy, made predominantly from Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, two chief grapes of Burgundy, right? And it has to be made in Method Traditionnel. So it is made in a Method Champenois, the two fermentations made in the same bottling. I'm not going to go over Method Champenois. We've gone through that many times. I think all of you kind of understand how Champagne or Method Champenois works, or traditional method works. You see Cremant everywhere around France, like Cremant de Bourgogne. There's a Cremant d'Alsace, there's a Cremant de Loire. It's essentially a regional sparkling wine appellation for traditional method sparkling wine made with the local varieties. So in Burgundy, it would be Chardonnay, right? Mostly Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. Those are the two chief grapes of Burgundy. If you go to Alsace, it would be like Pinot Gris, Pinot Blanc, Riesling, right? If you go to Cremant de Loire, we're talking about Chenin Blanc, right? Maybe some Cabernet Franc thrown in there. So whatever the local varieties are, it's a sparkling wine that's made from that, but it's always made in a traditional method. So as you can imagine, especially Cremant de Bourgogne that comes from places like Côte d'Azur up north by Chablis, where it butts up right up against Champagne, stylistically, it's going to be very similar, right? Especially there, because they share the same varieties as a Champagne, the Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, Pinot Meunier. But here in Burgundy, we're talking about really Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. So we're even using the similar varieties, similar soil type. So yeah, it's an excellent place. This kind of northern tip, Cremant de Bourgogne, to find Champagne alternative. Having said that, if you go to southern end of Cremant de Bourgogne is an all-encompassing appellation for the sparkling wine that's made in anywhere within Burgundy. So if you happen to get a Cremant de Bourgogne that's made in, let's say, Mâcon, which is all the southern end of Burgundy, much closer to Beaujolais than it is to Champagne, stylistically, it's just going to be much more different, right? Mâcon is just much warmer, so it's going to be a lot fuller. The soil type changes a little bit. Here you start to see some of the granitic influence that Beaujolais is known for kind of creep up in there. So the soil composition changes, the climate changes, it's much cooler up in Chablis. So just because Cremant de Bourgogne is not a monolith, it's not going to be the same. Stylistically, it really kind of depends on where in Burgundy it comes from. And that's where you kind of have to do your kind of homework on the bottle or the producer to see where they source their grapes from. But and in general, the aging requirement for Cremant is lower than Champagne. But some producers will go far beyond the legal requirements, like it is the case today. making an excellent, more affordable alternative to Champagne, like I mentioned, especially Cremant de Bourgogne, that is a neighbor to Champagne, that comes from Chablis, Côte d'Auxerre. The Burgundy sparkling wines were first kind of appeared at the beginning of the 19th century. This was a still dry wine region, but at the beginning of the 19th century, the sparkling wines started to kind of appear. And at the time, the best sparkling wines were produced from the vineyard sites that are now classified as a Grand Cru for still wines. But the price for these dry still wine, the premium for Grand Cru Burgundy wines, have skyrocketed in the modern market. So this kind of practice of making sparkling wine from Grand Cru site has largely disappeared. And these days, you're not going to find, Cremant de Bourgogne made from, Champs-Élysées or any Grand Cru sites. It's just going to be Beaumar or like anything like that. That's all going to be mostly made in either satellite villages like Auxerre or different parts in Mâconnais, Chalonnais, and different parts of Burgundy. It follows a similar kind of regulations as Champagne. So what I mean by that is in terms of varietal selections. So Chardonnay and Pinot Noir being the main kind of chief varieties. But there are other minority varieties like Aligoté, Melon de Bourgogne, Pinot Blanc, Gamay, Pinot Gris. Those are all allowed in Cremant de Bourgogne, just like in Champagne, right? Like Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, Pinot Meunier are the main characters, but there are other minority blending grapes that are allowed. I think there are up to like 10 different minor varieties that are allowed in Champagne as well. Same thing in Cremant de Bourgogne. Also, that whole idea of Blanc de Blanc, Blanc de Noir, same idea. If you ever see a Blanc de Blanc, that's all Chardonnay here in Cremant de Bourgogne. If you ever see Blanc de Noir, it's most likely a Pinot Noir that's in there. Legally, Pinot Noir and Chardonnay must make up at least 30% of the blend. So it's a very low kind of a requirement to have two chief varieties to be in the blend. But the most wines are actually exclusively or mostly made of those two grapes. So anytime you get Cremant de Bourgogne, just know that it's either going to be Chardonnay and or Pinot Noir. There may be some minority grades thrown in there, and legally only 30%. You are only required to put only 30%. The Chardonnay and Pinot Noir are required to be only 30% of the blend, but oftentimes it is exclusively those two varieties. Also the same label, like I said, Blanc de Blanc, Blanc de Noir. Sweetness level, the Brut 0 to Doux, right? Brut 0, Brut, Extra Brut, Sec, Demi-Sec, all that kind of sweetness level that we talked about of Champagne last week, same thing holds for Cremant de Bourgogne. So anytime you see those labels, you can kind of guess what the sweetness level of the sugar level of the wine's going to be. The Cremant de Bourgogne from the cool, chalky soils around Chablis in the north are noticeably different from the ones that are from Mâconnais, like I mentioned. So it all really kind of depends on your style, your preference. Don't think that Cremant de Bourgogne is all the same. I just happen to, you all know what a Champagne whore that I am. So I particularly like Cremant de Bourgogne that comes from these kind of northern tip, like Chablis, Auxerre, and all those places, just because it's the closest thing to Champagne. It is not Champagne, but it is the closest thing to that you're gonna get to it. But I also just like the stylistically, that kind of much more leaner, laser focused, higher acid profile of the northern Cremant de Bourgogne, as opposed to more powerful, rich, opulent, kind of the southern style, Cremant de Bourgogne. So, but you be the judge. You know, it's not that one is better than the other. You just kind of have to figure out what your preference is. The minimum lease aging requirement for Cremant de Bourgogne is 9 months. It's quite short compared to Champagne. So the non-vintage Champagnes is 15 months. Again, oftentimes most producers will go age them far longer than that. But just know that Cremant de Bourgogne, by law, it's going to be less aging requirement than Champagne, and oftentimes it's going to be less kind of leasy, autolytic than Champagne. Is one of the things that what makes Champagne great. But But this week's wine, this producer, just like I said, most people do it far longer than they have to. So 9 months is what's only required. But this guy has put it for 24 months. So yeah, quite a bit longer, almost 3 times longer than the legal requirement. So yeah, that's what we got here. Who makes this wine? If you go to picture number 4, that is Edouard. I have no idea how to pronounce that last name. Lespem, Lespem, Lepesme. I don't know how to pronounce it in French. Yeah, so that's Edouard. That's the guy who runs Le Domaine d'Edouard. So Edouard first built his career in marketing for négociants in Burgundy and Champagne. So he wasn't necessarily involved in winemaking, but he was involved in kind of helping these négociants, these co-op producers, to get their names out. After all the meetings that he had with people working in vineyards and wine, made him kind of want to discover, quote unquote, the basis of his profession. And that kind of curiosity continued to grow, and he started to wonder about his professional goals. Then in 2011, he finally decided to change the direction of his professional pursuit. He left his job and enrolled in the enology program in Beaune. There's a very famous or very well known, it's kind of like a UC Davis of a school. It's the wine school in Burgundy, in Beaune. So he enrolled in the enology program there. After getting his degree, after theory comes practice. So from 2012 to 2013, he worked with some luminaries in Chablis and Côte d'Or, and even spent some time in New Zealand. So just kind of went around trying to get as much experience as they could. But the biggest influence that the biggest influence, the mentor that had the biggest influence on him were the local living legends, none other than Alice and Olivier Demore in Chablis. So, we just recently had a Demore allocation that some of you got. Those are the kind of the guys who mentored this guy, Edouard, how to make wine. So you can kind of imagine why his wines would be good. In 2014, while looking for a job, an opportunity came up, and he just kind of jumped on it. Andre Donat, which is a well-known producer in the region, his estate came up for sale, and then he knew that opportunity like that wouldn't come around again. So he did everything he could and purchased that 13-hectare land in Côte d'Axer. Less than half of it is planted to vines. So a lot of his land is planted to cherry blossoms and different shrubs and different trees. Again, adding to that biodiversity and just kind of keeping it all biodynamic and natural, as Alice and Olivier has probably taught him. So Edouard produces a very small amount of wine. A lot of it is very, very quality focused. He does not do like a commodity wine, especially when you make that small of a wine. So he makes a very small amount of wine and then sells most of his fruit to other winemakers, including the Demores. So for those of you who got the Demore allocation, the chances are this guy probably grew some of the fruit that they use. His vineyards have been farmed organically since the 1990s, and they're surrounded by beautiful cherry trees, like I mentioned, organic wheat fields as well, adding to diversity. And I guess no surprise here, having studied under the Demore, farming is completely organic and biodynamic. He's a certified organic, by the way. And the winemaking is very much hands-off. Hand harvesting, the indigenous, the native fermentation, low sulfur, all the hallmarks of natural wine that we talk about in this wine club. Edouard is a kind of a bit of a rising star in this region and getting a lot of attention. Definitely keep your eyes out. This is actually my first time hearing of him, but the wine really impressed me. And having learned that he studied under Demore, I now kind of see some kind of a thread that kind of ties it all together, and I see the commonality here. But I think it's definitely somebody to keep your eye out for years to come. I mean, not only is Auxerre kind of becoming this area that everybody's starting to pay attention to, On top of that, there's just like the rising star of a young winemaker that's there. So yeah, I'm sure he's going to get bigger. Again, only less than half of his land is also planted to vine, so he's got room to grow. He's already making some banging ass wines in a region that's getting more limelight. So maybe it's time to start buying some of his wines. I'm just saying. But yeah. All right. So what is this wine? This is certified organic. The text sheet and what's on the back of the label is a little different. The text sheet said 50% Pinot and 50% Chard, but the back of the label says 43% Pinot, 57% Chard. So I don't know which one to believe, but I think I'm gonna go with what's in the back. So let's go with that. A little more Chardonnay than it is Pinot, but essentially 50-50. All practicing certified organic, but also practicing biodynamic. Grown on Kimmeridgian clay, which is the same soil type that's found in Chablis. It's that limestone-rich soil with a lot of that, or clay with a lot of the marine shells that are found there. This is from 1 hectare of vines in a single vineyard called Vaux, hence the Collines de Vaux. So we're talking about a very select small rows of from a single vineyard. So very, very small percentage, very little wine is made from here. So yeah, hand harvested, made in method traditional. So the double fermentation, 2 fermentations inside the bottle. Chardonnay and Pinot Noir fermented separately. 85% in tank. Also, this is different. Here it says 20% is a reserve, but texture says 85%, 15% are reserve. But it's essentially, if you're going to go with the back of the label, 80% of the wines are vinified in tank, the primary fermentation, first fermentation in tank, and then 20% of the wines are fermented in barrels, and those are reserve wines. So just like champagne, right? A lot of times the Cremant de Bourgogne, Cremant d'Alsace, just Cremants in general, they are vintaged. There's no non-vintage, vintage. They're just kind of using that year's wine to do it. But here, Edouard is really following. I think he's trying to really compete with the champagne, trying to really place himself as like the champagne alternative of this region. But he's pulling some of his wines back and making it as a reserve wine. So his wines at 20% are he's holding it back as a reserves, and those are fermented in barrels. Aged 6 months in separate vats, then blended, and then it spends 24 months on the lees inside the bottle, goes through all that remoulage, turning, right, putting it upside down, disgorgement, all of that. Does not have a disgorgement date on the bottle, but all I know is that it has spent 24 months. That's what it says on the back of the label as well. And then 0 dosage, so there's no sugar added here whatsoever. So we're talking about very dry, bone dry. The acid here, the acid profile here is ripping. It's awesome. But yeah, so 0 dosage, just a little bit of sulfur right before bottling is essentially what you have here. All right. I guess we'll go through the tasting at this point. Normally at this point, I would ask you for questions. I haven't done one of these recordings in a while, so I'm a little rusty in the flow. So bear with me. All right. So in that email, I'm also sending you the grid. So let's go through that. So start from the top. Appearance. Let's see. This wine is clear. Hold on, give me 1 sec. This is being a little weird. Okay. This wine is clear. Intensity. I'm gonna call this pale gold, medium lemon. It's not nothing, but it's not a ton of color here. Yeah, pale gold, medium lemon, something around there. Any other observations? It is definitely sparkling. There's a steady stream bubbles coming up on mine. So yeah, definitely some pétillance in the wine. Let's get to the nose. This one is clean. This one is sound. Intensity. Smelling it right there. Which is like just off the glass. My wine is also very cold. I just pulled this out right away, right before tasting. So I'm gonna call this one medium intensity right now. Medium intense aromas of, what do we got? Yeah, I was gonna say maybe there's a touch of like a white flower here, but no. I think I'm just getting convinced there. There's something really pretty about this wine, but yeah, I'm not gonna say going to floral. I do get some green fruit here. I do get some like really unripe. I get some like yellow apple, Basque pear. Yeah, like some sort of like a golden pear, golden apple. Or like a green apple, actually. I mean, green pear. Yeah, green pear. Really unripe, like an underripe yellow apple, or like the Granny Smith. But there are some. I get some sort of green fruit here. Citrus for sure. I get lemon. I mean, really like fresh lemon, lemon pith, lemon peel. No much stone fruit. No tropical. No red or black. Fruit quality. It's just really fresh. Nothing is overripe. If anything, maybe touch underripe, but like just a ripe, fresh fruit. Really like the beginning of the season fruit. Like, you know, when it's not like underripe, but it's not quite at the peak of the season where all the aromatics are really blossoming. This is like, you know, beginning of the fall, apples and pears and, you know, lemons that are just coming in at the end of fall, that kind of a quality to it. Herbaceousness? No. I don't get much herbaceousness here. Herbal? No. No spice. I do get some stoniness here. There's some like wet stone. Yeah, I do get some like crushed rock. I do get some minerality here for sure. The autolytic, it's not as strong. In fact, in terms of autolytic goes, last week's champagne I thought was much more autolytic than this. Even that wasn't like a super autolytic wine, but that I spent 36 months, this I spent 24 months. I do get some like a little toast, but this may also be the barrel, and I'm sure it's not a new oak, but I do get a little bit of just a touch of like a toast, just touch of like a lazy, cheesy, cheese rind kind of a bready kind of quality to it, but not over the top. Just a touch of autolytic. No MLF on this thing for me, and then no sign of a new oak whatsoever. Yeah, there's some sort of like a toasty quality. It's not a new oak, but yeah, so I'm gonna call it an autolytic. Can't quite put this autolytic, but maybe some of these like almond skin or something like that. But there's some sort of savory kind of a yeasty quality to this thing for sure. All right, let's get to, and then no tertiary. Let's get to the palate. Let's taste it. Holy shit. This one is dry. I'm gonna call this high acid. I mean, it is. Whew! It's punchy. Yeah, it's my mouth is watering. So yeah, bone dry, high acid, no tannin. Alcohol seems like right down the middle, 12.5, maybe even 12. 12, yep. I mean, that's exactly what you would expect from this place, right? Body. Well, they're like a low end of medium, high end of medium minus. Nothing too big, but nothing hot. It's not water either. So, yeah, anywhere somewhere between medium minus and medium, somewhere around there. Mousse, definitely a delicate mousse. Spend much less time than, whole year less than the wine that we had last week, but the mousse here is still very fine. Like, to me, this is coming off very, very delicate. Maybe if I really want to split hair, because the bubble size feels maybe a little bit bigger, but in general, it's still very much of a creamy, very much of a delicate, very pinprick kind of a mousse. Flavor intensity, I'm gonna call this about medium as well. Yeah, it's not over the top. Seems a little locked up right now. My wine just may be too cold. But yeah, I'm gonna call this about medium on intensity, both on the nose and the palate as well. Let's get to what we get. So primary, all the things I mentioned on the nose. I mean, it's that green fruit, some of that pear, some of that apple, but I get a little more apple on the palate than the nose, but definitely the green fruit really comes out. Citrus, that's citrus lemon zest, squeeze of lemon. That all really comes out. No stone fruit, no tropical, red fruit, black fruit, no fruit quality is just fresh and ripe, maybe touch even underripe, but really fresh, nothing dry, nothing cooked. Definitely you can tell this comes from a cool climate, right? And there's nothing that screams warm climate here. Like, everything's really tight and young and fresh and maybe underripe even, right? Nothing herbaceous, nothing herbal. I mean, this is just a impeccable farming here. Just the fruit quality here, just really, really good. There's nothing. Remember last week Champagne had that little bit of phenolic bitterness? There's none of that running through here. Like, it is just really clean, really precise, just perfect fruit quality here. Just testament to his impeccable farming. No spice, and then I definitely get minerality here. Like, similar to the Champagne from last week. In the Champagne, there's a little bit of that like chalky limestone quality here, really taut, really good tension on this wine. The fact that this is a zero dosage really helps with pumping up that acid and really making that mineral profile come through as well. But yeah, there's that real limestone chalky minerality running through here. Like, even though this is just next to Chablis, I don't get that like Chablis Kimmeridgian clay, that seashell, marine seashell kind of a quality. Is more of the chalky limestone, almost like a Champagne quality minerality here. Autolytic, I definitely do get a little bit of autolytics, but way less than it was last week. I mean, again, just touch of that brioche, touch of that bready, toasty kind of a thing going on here. But what is fantastic about this wine, and I think it really comes from, I think this is what really sets Edouard apart from other Cremant de Bourgogne producers, is that 20% of reserve wine that he holds back and then adds to the wine, and making it non-vintage, not a vintage. Because if you sit with it, take a sip, and just wait. I want you to pay attention to the very end of the finish. Still going. Right there for me. There's that oxidative edge to this. And that comes from that reserve wine that's been sitting in barrels, right? Barrels have this oxidative edge. There's micro-oxygenation that happens because, the oak staves are porous. And there's this kind of almond skin, almondy, like a little bit of nutty kind of a thing going on at the end, kind of almost a like touch of cheese rind as well. It's like a savory, nutty, oxidative edge that's here. It's fucking beautiful. Like it's also the length on this thing is crazy. I almost want to call this length long. Like, this is like medium plus, at least verging on long. I'm gonna call this squarely medium plus, but maybe I'll go as far as calling it long, but it is very long. and yeah, that oxidative kind of like a nutty character kind of carries all through. So it's beautiful. It kind of takes you on this like evolution, right? Like starts off with this like punch of acid first of all, right? Like it just comes in, pops in your mouth with that acid, makes your mouth water, and then you got this lemon and pear and apple all going on. And then it switches over to the minerality. You get the kind of stoniness and then toast of the autolytic. And then as it sits towards the end of it, you start to getting this kind of lazy almond skin, kind of a nutty quality that just lingers at the end. So yeah, it's just like this kind of beautiful journey and evolution that this wine takes you on, which is super cool. I love this wine. It's so fucking good. All right. And then finally, length. I mean, I already talked about that, kind of like medium plus, if not long. It's length is there. All right, so let's bring it home. This one is balanced, right? I suppose you could argue that the acid here seems really high with the 0 dosage, but the fact that also this is a cold place. Chablis is not warm. The fact that there's not a single touch of unripeness or herbaceousness, greenness here. Again, like the farming here is really impressive. Like he farmed some incredible fruit here. He picked it at the right time, farmed it correctly, picked it at the right time. Really light touch, just let this fruit speak for itself. It's fantastic. This is a really good wine. But that 0 dosage makes the acid come across really, really high at the beginning. So you could argue perhaps that the acid seems a little out of balance. I'll take that. I think that's fair. But to me, it doesn't seem out of balance. It's not interfering with me tasting other things. So I'm still going to call it balanced. Intensity, we call it medium on the nose, medium on the palate. So it may be lacking on the intensity a little bit. And then complexity, we call on the primary, we have some lemon, we have some green fruit, pear, apple. We have some minerality, right? Like some of the chalky limestone minerality. Little secondary, the autolytic, not super autolytic, but some autolytic in there. And then also has some tertiary, that oxidative, like, edge that's coming through. So we're hitting all three of them. So I'm gonna call this at least medium, but not a whole lot of different fruit. But yeah, I'm gonna call that at least medium, verging on medium plus, somewhere between medium plus, right? On the complexity. And then the length, we call it squarely in medium plus, maybe even verging on long. So balance, medium intensity, and I think that's a function of just my wine being super cold. I also was late in chilling this, so I put it in the freezer before I opened. So mine is ice cold, or now it's getting better. So maybe it's a little better now. But yeah, it does seem a little better. But yeah, it was ice cold when I pulled it out. So that maybe yours is more expressive. But right now, the wine in my glass, I'll call this balanced, medium intensity, medium to medium plus complexity, and then medium plus length. So we're definitely landing somewhere in medium plus, and then landing on being generous. I'm gonna call this very good. Level, readiness for drinking and ageability. I think this is drinking beautifully right now. I love where this wine is right now. All that lemon, all that fruit with the tertiary, the oxidative edge at the end, with the minerality in the middle, autolytic, layers of autolytic, just giving a little complexity. There are layers to this wine. It's not just one note. You got the fruit, you got the minerality, you got the autolytics, and you got the oxidative edge. Like there are layers to this wine. And they're all coming at like different stage of the tasting journey, which I really find enjoyable. So I think it's at a beautiful spot. Drink it now, and if you want to age it, right? Like you've got high acid, so we got a really good acid structural backbone to do it. The only thing is it doesn't have huge intensity. So is there a lot of things to play with to begin with? Yeah, so sure, you have a good backbone, but is there enough muscle there for it to develop into something? Perhaps, complexity is something that we said was somewhere between medium, maybe leaning towards a medium plus, giving it a little edge will develop better. I personally do think it's gonna make the wine even better because this is not a hugely like fruit forward wine. It's meant to be, it's got those layers of oxidative, and then the autolytic is what really drives it on top of the wine, the fruit. So I would say if you want to drink this now, perfect. Drink it right now. I would personally like to see where this wine ends up in, let's say, 5 to 8 years. Given that high acid, I don't think this wine's going to go anywhere. I do worry if it's going to, because the intensity, again, that may be a function of just how cold my wine is, but intensity is not so high, it may quickly lose a lot of that freshness and everything may become tertiary. But because of that acid, I don't think it's going to happen very quickly. So I would say drink this over next 5 years, no problem. I think it'd be very enjoyable. I do wonder, I'm very curious where this wine would be in like year 6. Just to when that tertiary start to kick in a little bit more. I'm curious to where this would go. But I think this is a fantastic aperitif wine. Like if I've got a glass of this at the beginning of a meal, or if I went to somebody's dinner party and they served me this as like the opening glass of wine, I would be fucking stoked. This would catch my attention. I'd be like, who poured this? Are you gonna be that person who pours it for your guests? I hope so. Anyways, all right. So this is tasting. Let's see. Yeah, if you have any questions, shoot me an email. I can't promise that I will get to it right away. It may take me a couple of weeks, or hold on to it until our last in-person tasting on the 26th, and then we can do it then. But anyways, for now, let's play everybody's favorite game. If you want to pause right now and then think about it, but how much do you think this wine is on a retail shelf? How much would you be happy paying for this on a retail shelf? Pause it if you like. And the answer is, and think about it, right? It's Cremant de Bourgogne. It is not champagne. It also has less aging requirement than champagne, but even though it has been aged for 24 months. Last week was 36 months. Just a point of comparison, last week's champagne was $42.50 on a retail shelf, right? So how much do you think this is, not being a champagne, on a retail shelf, and how much would you be happy for this in the retail shelf? And the answer is $38. So not the cheapest Cremant de Bourgogne out there, not the most expensive Cremant de Bourgogne out there, but at $38, I'll drink this over last week's champagne any day, every day of the week. This is kind of what I'm talking about. There's a reason why I threw this in there. I said this is the wine that it became the centerpiece and it kind of built the box around it. So I wanted to talk about how good the Cremant can be. And on top of that, especially with the rise in price of champagne, the value proposition is just starting to get less and less, especially for entry-level champagne, right? There will always be room for aged Grand Cru, the top of the tête de cuvée champagnes out there. I mean, those things are just unbelievable stuff, right? And maybe, price value proposition wise, maybe it doesn't make sense, but sometimes it is the only way. It's the only kind of wine that you can get that kind of flavors and experience from. So maybe it's worth it, right? But when you're talking about entry level champagne versus Cremant, just really well made Cremant that is $4 cheaper, who wouldn't pick this? To me, this is no brainer. To me, this is what I would want to drink and what I would buy over that champagne any day of the week. So, and even I said this last week, that $42.50 champagne last week, is unheard of. I haven't seen that in years. Like that price of for champagne, I haven't seen in years. We'll probably never see it again because it continues to go up every year. So why wouldn't you buy more of this? This is what I'm talking about. So like this kind of a region that is very close to Champagne, similar style, but a little bit different, right? You can tell this is not Champagne, but also made by a careful, thoughtful producer that's doing things right and that is cheaper right now. You probably won't stay this way forever because it's also Burgundy. Burgundy is not cheap. So maybe it's time like this is, we're catching it maybe perhaps at the right moment where we're like, just catching Auxerre and these satellite villages of Chablis, of Burgundy really starting to take off. And then we're catching it like right before the prices really start to skyrocket again and the quality is really there. So if you just do your homework and if you look deep enough in these satellite villages, in these outside parts, you can find some real gems, like real quality and then real value, which is exactly what this wine is. And that's why I was so excited to share this with you all this week. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed it. Shoot me a comment, message, disagreement, questions, whatever you have. And I think that's all I got for you. So hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you on a recording again. Well, I won't see you, but my recording will go out next week again, and then I'll be back on the 26th for the last tasting, and hopefully I'll have some tan, and I'm blissed out from being in a tropical paradise for 2 weeks. So, all right, cool. See you guys later.